So welcome to the hybrid training template 12-week program. This video is just going to take you through the basic functions of the of the template, how to use it, all of its features, and hopefully how you can get the most out of it. So we're currently on the dashboard. We will actually come back to this a little bit later on because it's a bit more retrospective and helps you analyze what you've already programmed or what you've already completed in training. So we're going to jump to the planning tab. Now, the first thing you'll see is that it's laid out to help you think from the macro down to the micro. So the first thing we want to look at is whether we're doing 3 or 4 mesocycles. Now, it's 12 weeks, whatever. So if you select 4, then obviously you're just going to have 3-week cycles. But if you select 3, then you'll have 4-week cycles, and the sheet will update to that. So if I do put in that I only want 3 mesocycles, you'll see that it does blank out anything that it doesn't want you to fill in. And if I went onto the phase 4 sheet, you'd see that I've only selected 3. So whatever you choose, the sheet will respond to. You can also choose your start date. Now, it's important that you do this because everything on the dashboard will update in response to this date. So make sure that you get that in there correctly. All you need to do is double click and you can select your date from the drop down. Then it's just a simple process of working through your weekly structure of your mesocycle. So again, 3 options. We can either gym, conditioning, or rest. Select what I want for each day. Once I've made those selections, they will be put into each day here. So I've selected gym for day 1. So that means these options will now be limited to the gym options, conditioning for day 2, etc. Where I've selected rest, you'll see that it has blanked out the options once again, just to make sure you know not to put anything in there. Moving on to each day, you can then choose the category of exercise. So you can actually think about the main focus of your training session before you get into the nitty-gritty of the exercises and the reps. So here I've got high force and speed, bodybuilding and strength, and assistance. Now, the exercises that come up in response will adjust as well. So you can see if I've got high force and speed, these are all of my power exercises, my plyometrics, my high force, anything where I'm moving fast. So medicine ball throws, your jumps, your extensive plyos, everything like that. And then if I go to bodybuilding, we've got more of our traditional strength movements, so to speak, fronts, backs, and then all of the extras there. And then the assistance and skill, more of your bodyweight movements, some running technique ones, but we won't necessarily use those in the gym session. But if you do want to, they are there. So we've got our trunk movements as well and our core movements. So once you've selected your categories and your exercise, you can then select the rep scheme. Now, we've put in a baseline amount of rep schemes and loosely categorized them to whether they're looking at high force speed, bodybuilding, or assistance. However, you are able to choose any category. You are able to choose any rep scheme for any exercise. So if there is a rep scheme in force that you want to use on a bodybuilding movement, you can. These are just a loose guide that we've put in place for you. Now, on the conditioning ones, it's exactly the same. Your intervals, tempos, and lists. So low intensity, steady state. And then you can select your modality as well: run, swim, bike, row. And then again, we have your options of what you actually want to do. Now, we've again categorized these into intervals, lists, and tempo, just to give you a nice starting point. So once I've programmed my entire week, I can start my program straight away, or I can go in and program the other mesocycles. You don't have to. Some people like to do cycle at a time. Other people might like to do 2 and leave the third one responsive, or you might just want to do the whole thing. That's entirely up to you. You can go back and change this at any point, but just be aware that if you change something when you've already done training in that cycle, it may affect what you see on the dashboard. So once you've selected and planned out your cycle, you can go into phase 1, and you will now see that the exercises are all in place, and we have available sets boxes for you to put in your data of what you've achieved. You don't need to write in kilograms or pounds or anything, just write the number. Okay, if you write kilos or pounds, the dashboard won't recognize it as a number, it will think it's text. So I can fill in these as I go. Nice and simple. 70, let's say I did 70 again. Maybe my pause squat, where it's a build to a heavy 3, I can put in any sets that I felt were worthy of a working set. So I might say, what are we at? I might get 150, 160, 170, and yeah, that was my heavy 3. And then I might hit 3 sets at 120. Now, if you don't do a 4th, 5th, and 6th set, that's fine, just leave it blank. Also, if you have accessory movements, these won't necessarily be tracked because they're not going to create such a level of fatigue. So we don't worry about including those in the tracking, so you can put more notes forms in here. With the intervals or the conditioning work, we want you to put the distance you achieve in your rep boxes. So every rep, let's say 10 seconds, I managed to get 90 meters every single time. Bang on. Here I've actually overworked because I'm only meant to be doing 2 sets of 10 seconds, so I can go back and delete those. And then we've also got some advisory rep periods for inter rep, so between these two, around 75 seconds. And then before I move on to the bike intervals, I want 2 to 3 minutes rest. Again, these are loose guidelines from us provided to give you an idea of what might be a suitable amount of time depending on whatever you have chosen. Now, one big thing that you can't see on the screen here is how you might be able to change these reps per week. The main reason for that is because it's laid out at the moment. So if you choose to print this out, fill it in by hand, and then go in and put the data in later on, this will fit perfectly on an A4 sheet of paper in landscape. However, if you do want to change the reps week by week, you can see up here, each week there are 2 little arrows. This means there are some hidden cells. So I can go in, and you can now see at the moment, this is just directly mirroring what it was the week before. So I could change this 5 times 2. That's absolutely fine. It won't change anything in your dashboard, apart from updating how many reps or sets you have done. The one really important thing to say on this is that you must finish with the number of reps that you're looking to achieve. So you can see here I've got build to a heavy 3 or a back off sets of 3 times 3. That is because the program will recognize the final number in the cell as to how many reps you have done. So don't write heavy 3 reps because it won't recognize it. It needs to be build to heavy set of 3. You can do that for each week. And as I say, it will just mirror what is in the week before it. So I've got 5 times 2 here. That is now going to be 5 times 2 as well. I could change that to 4 times 2. So you're able to go in and adjust those accordingly. The phases are exactly the same. So I haven't programmed anything for these so far. So it'll be showing up with NA so that you know you need to go back to the planning sheet to put in that data. So once you've filled in your training, you are filling in your training, you can also head over back to the dashboard. Now, this is where the sheet boasts its, what I would say, some of its biggest benefits. So first of all, here you've got the programming dashboard, the distribution of your sessions. Now, this is important, obviously, with hybrid training, because you want to see whether you are biasing the gym or whether you are biasing the conditioning or what sections of the gym or conditioning you are favoring. Obviously here I've only got one mesocycle program, so I can just click the drop-down menu and focus in on that one mesocycle. And this will highlight the distribution of those factors, like I said, and also give you the percentage. Again here, whether you're looking at tempo, intervals, lists, it's giving you all of those, all that information in these graphs here and the percentages. You can also look specifically at high force, high speed. So if we had more mesocycles programmed, I could look at how much percentage of high force, high speed I have programmed across each mesocycle. I could also do that for the conditioning, gym, and rest distribution. So this gives you a nice idea of what you are favoring and how much of what you're actually doing. Moving down to training data, you'll see this is now updated because I've put some info in. So this first one just gives me an idea of the workload that I'm actually doing in terms of actual numbers. I could look at my gym volume, conditioning volume, or the max load. So if you want to track strength progressions rather than just the amount of work you're doing, you can do that in this first chart. You can also look at it from a dates perspective, so it will go through every single day rather than aggregating it across the week number. That's entirely up to you of how in depth you want to go. You can also select blank if you want to focus in on one specific metric. Next, we've got the acute to chronic work to rest ratio. Now, this will combine all of the work you do across your week and then look back retrospectively as to whether you have increased a lot or not much, or whether you're within suggested thresholds. You can see we've got the high and low threshold here. Now, this won't kick in until you've done a couple of weeks training because it's comparing it to what you have done previously. So seeing if you've taken a big jump and spiked your training load, or whether you're actually maybe under training and haven't completed a sufficient amount of work to maybe either maintain the progress you're making or to make sure you're staying healthy and on track. Bear in mind, this is only a guide. So it's more of a suggestion or raise the question of, are you pushing too hard or could you push more? Moving down to lift metrics, you can track your 1 rep max, estimated 1 rep maxes here. So I put in data for my power clean, so I can select that and it will tell me the maximum amount I've lifted and the estimated 1 rep max from those lifts. Okay, so well, you know that in week 1 I did 2 reps at 70 kilos, which is going to give me an estimated 1 rep max of 72. So this is another nice way of tracking that strength progress without having to do 1 rep max testing. Okay, so really nice feature in my opinion, because it means you've got embedded testing. And last but not least, you have your conditioning metrics. Now, this will give you your splits depending on whether you selected kilometers or miles. It will also give you your average velocities that you hit, your maximum velocities you hit across the weeks, and put everything in place for you to see that general progression. And again, we can also look at different modalities. So if I put the bike in, it will look at your time per kilometer. Whereas if I look at the rowing, it's probably going to look at my minutes per 500 because that's the general split you will see. Now you can also, a few other things here is the RPE sheet, a guideline for your training, just to know what those numbers mean when you're on your phases. This is adapted from the work of Mike, I can always say his name wrong, Mike Teixeira, for reactive training systems. So his great work. So we're stoked to involve that in the template. And then finally, you've got your lists. So generally speaking here, I would say don't touch anything apart from if you want to add your own exercises for the gym, you can add them in anywhere that's blue and just make sure you put them in the right category. Also, if you want to do, say, speed squats, you can put back squat in the high force category as well. What I would do is try and name it something slightly different so that the sheet can differentiate when it's looking at those lifting metrics. Okay, so hopefully that provides you an overview. I know I've got pretty long here. I was trying to keep it under 10 minutes, but we're at 13. But any questions, just get in touch. Find myself on Instagram, Strength Coach Nause, or the Progress Theory, or fire us a message. You can visit the website, strengthcoachnause.co.uk. We've got all the links here on the main site. There we go. So if you do want to get in touch, please do so. But otherwise, enjoy the program.